Hello, it's me, username classified here, and I'm just bored, and I don't feel like recording Spyro or that other big thing that I haven't done in like 3 weeks now that I've been working on, but it's not really your issue to know of it. Anyways, Pokemon discussion times. We
With
have
his guest.
we have this guy here. I don't know where he came from. I really don't know. Yeah, he was in my backyard, but this is just going to be some random Pokemon discussion. I'm not sure how in depth we're going to be going into, but the recent release of X and Y, not release, reveal. By recent, I mean like 4 months ago, but not too much has been revealed about it. I mean, we've had like a trailer for it, and then we've had the 5 Pokemon being revealed. I believe it's 6 actually, because the starters, the mascot legendaries, and the evolution.
Right.
The entire thing, though, it's 3D first of all, which is really interesting. I don't know if it's a good idea. What do you think of that?
I think it's okay. I'm not quite too sure which side I'm leaning on to yet until I at least get a little bit more information.
Well, we have like very little information on it, is the thing. We only
Yeah.
have the trailer to rely on and then some Pokemon artwork. That's pretty much it. But also, everyone is speculating what Sylveon is going to be in terms of type. Now, I came up with this theory that it's probably stupid and way off, and it's probably going to be something like a light type, because they're probably going to introduce a new type. I've heard this rumor around like everywhere, and I don't know if I'm against that idea. I may be just neutral towards it. The only reason I would like have a negative opinion towards it is because, well, first of all, they would have to like re-identify or relabel Pokemon. Like, take for instance Clefairy and Jigglypuff. They would be fairy type or light type or whatever. But
No, or possibly we just don't know yet, is that they're going to probably put in about the same amount of Pokemon this generation as, say, Gen 5 or Gen 1, and then just have, instead of one new type, two new types to rebalance everything out.
yeah, because then it would be an odd number, I think. I'm not really sure. But I've heard a lot of people talk about this one in particular, sound type. Now, we have Chatot, the Whismur line. There are a few other ones. I just can't think of them at all. Chatot, Whismur. Can you think of any? I really am dumb, but
I could maybe sit there and think a little bit more about what could become those new types if they are new types.
well, there
But
are a handful of sound-based Pokemon or Pokemon that can work as sound types.
yes, Zubat could possibly be a sound type, but
I don't
that
know.
uh, so what's the main discussion going to be tonight? Probably
I'm probably just gonna go all around and just generally discuss the series. But X and Y will probably be a heavy topic on this discussion thing. I don't know how long we're gonna go until we're saying every 2 seconds, but not like that, because I say because it's a habit. I think everyone except for like, I don't know, everyone says so yeah. Anyways, well, let's see. We were talking about the light types and the discussion on what type Ninfeon is. Ninfeon, Sylveon, that's the Japanese name, is Ninfeon. Anyways, I was talking about the theory that I had, which is kind of stupid and probably way off, and it's probably going to be one of the new types, but I was thinking that it could be a normal evolution, like no stones, just level up to a certain level or something like that. I don't know. But we have Umbreon and Espeon, which evolved by friendship, and I'm not sure what the other one is. It's been a while. But I was thinking that it could work, like, if you evolve it to a certain level, and the female Eevee would turn into Sylveon. I'm sorry, I know Eevee is, like, 70% male, but Sylveon looks overtly female. Let's try to look this up without finding Rule 34. Okay. Sylveon, right here. I know you can't see it, but I have the cam recorder.
People have, if I can cut in a little bit, people have tried to give a little more of a normal opinion, saying that there's a few screenshots of, I guess, an egg from Sylveon, from Pokemon, that may make it, or describe it as a flying type. But I'm not quite sure how.
But
I'm not quite sure how this design would
really
quite
only has.
fit
It really only has the wings. I mean, not wings, just like bows, pretty much. But yeah, it looks really female to me, really feminine. But I was thinking that there could be like a male counterpart to that, and it would evolve at the same level if it were male. Now I don't know. It's kind of stupid, but it's probably not true. But this is just what I think would be okay. I wouldn't mind that, having a normal evolution. But in all honesty, I don't think we need another evolution. I mean, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 already. I was actually counting that on a picture, because this one right here. I don't know if you're going to see them. This is really, really not really professional. I'm just kind of hovering on Google Images. Maybe I'll crop some of it. I don't know, but yeah, I think that we have enough evolutions as it is. I mean, we pretty much have all of the special attacks, like the grass, the water, etc., etc. But anyways, what were you gonna say?
I was just going to cut in about maybe something else that Sylveon could be that'd be a little more normal, and which I'll talk about later if we're going to keep this discussion on Gen 6. But that is that maybe Sylveon is a female counterpart to Eevee, and that it may not be an evolution, but that it's just a female form, and that we might be seeing more relations to the first gen and Gen 6, which sounds a little overdue.
Eevee,
but
Sylveon is big. It's larger than Eevee, and it was told to be I'm pretty sure it's going to be an evolution. I just don't see it being like a normal version. I don't see the point of that. I don't know. But
we still don't know that much about Eevee.
We know that it exists, and it's part of the Eevee line. That's about all we know so far.
Yeah.
But
so would you like to hear a discussion or a theory about me from Gen 6, or do you want to get started on something else like maybe a different gen?
We can go on about anything really. So just go on what you were talking about, and yeah.
Well, I was kind of thinking that maybe that Gen 6 would start to tie in some after effects. Well, not after effects, but continuations, like maybe a continuation of Gen 1, which I personally think is a little bit ridiculous.
Do you mean expanding on like the Kanto region?
Yeah. Since the two things we know right now about Generation 6 is that it's going to be about genetics, and genetics and DNA was a large part of Gen 1, and about, how cloning was bad.
Well, I forgot about that. I forgot about the Mew 3. No official name given, but Mew 3 is a big fan name, but I actually forgot about that. But I said earlier in the part that there were 6 ones. There are 7 ones. It is pretty much a it is related to Mew and Mewtwo in some way. Not necessarily like in evolved form because it's a legendary, and I don't think that would
It
work.
could be different from Mewtwo, but according to the anime right now, it is another form of Mewtwo. Now that's not to say that it's an evolved form or a different evolved form of Mew, and that it's just and that Mew is just going to be like the Eevee line. But from as far as or at least as far as we've been told, and what the anime says is that it's going to be just a different form. So like this will be like a maybe a more normal form and less of a psychic form.
Well, given
But
given that evidence, I'm sure we can see possible callbacks to first gen. I mean, if we're going through the genetic route again, I don't know if it's just like a one-off thing. I mean, it's in the title. I'm pretty sure they're based off of the X and Y chromosomes. I mean, it's not even confirmed yet, but we can only assume.
X and Y chromosomes are X and Y axis. That's
Yeah, that
the
one
idea.
too. I can't really see that though.
The art does not lie, though, and the art depicts DNA and pictures of
Yes,
genes.
it does.
But that's just my idea of what might happen in Gen 6, and I'd be fine if that happens, just as long as they don't pull something ridiculous out of their hats.
Now, also, what do you think of
Like
the starters?
starters. The starters look okay.
Let me get a picture of them.
As far as I know, they all they.
Here
I
we
guess
go.
to me they kind of look a little weird since usually since the beginning types usually have grown to have some kind of stereotypes with them now. Like I haven't really seen a grass starter that resembles a what do you call the animal squirrels, which is kind of what the new one looks
Well,
like.
this thing right here, Chespin,
Chest.
it's weird. People have said that like it's like a normal type cosplaying as a grass type, and other at another glance at it, it kind of looks like an acorn.
It does a little bit. What kind of gets to me though is Froakie's design, because Froakie's design looks a tad bit different than what Pokemon usually look like. And Fennekin kind of looks like
I noticed that if you look at Gen 2 and 1, I don't know, and then you compare that to Gen 3 and onwards, they look somewhat different. I don't know what it is exactly, but the whole design of like any given Pokemon, it just seems like they would not fit in Gen 1 or 2. They just don't, most of them.
well, actually, I was going to kind of say the opposite about Fennekin, because Fennekin kind of looks like Vulpix a little bit.
Fennekin is essentially Vulpix, but people are assuming that it's a dual fire and psychic type, which is better than fighting and fire because we've seen that 3 times already, and they're assuming that because in the trailer, Fennekin is seen using a what looks to be a Psybeam or Psychic, probably not Psychic. It was a beam, so
Maybe
See,
new move added into it.
it's inevitable that we're going to get new moves, and I actually like Froakie. I can imagine him to be okay, I found that, and that's terrible artwork. I mean, it's good, but it isn't fitting in Pokemon, and you are like not seeing any of this. But you'll see eventually. Anyways, Froakie is actually cool. I like Froakie. I don't know what it could be. Something tells me that it could potentially be like a flying Pokemon. You know those in Wind Waker, the frogs. I forget their names.
Right.
Those gods,
Yeah.
those frog gods.
The frog gods from Wind Waker. What you are forgetting is that Pokemon kind of goes by common sense, and frogs usually don't fly. So it might be a pure water type again.
Well, I just looked up Frog God because I forgot his name. But this guy right here, I can see a
Jasper
lot
looks.
of I can see a lot of comparisons to this thing, and I wouldn't mind if it turned out to be something like that. And it seems, I don't know, I'm not sure if it seems that feasible, but
Do
it's
do
an
you
interesting
wanna?
thought,
This is a bit of an interesting thought.
and I wouldn't
Do you
mind.
mind if I cut this close and say that we should maybe talk a little bit about the other generations for a while?
Uh, I don't know. Let's see if we can think of anything else to talk about. Um, in Pokemon in general, though. Well, the Pokemon, not the franchise, but the Pokemon that would appear in sixth gen. What are you expecting? Because I don't know, fifth gen. You can tell that they're kind of running out of ideas. Not to say that fifth gen Pokemon are bad, but some of them are just a bit weird. So I don't know. And I know a lot of people complain about things being Pokemon being based off of like objects, i.e., the Vanillux being based on a snow cone, ice cream, whatever. Well, they've been doing that since first gen, really. I mean, Voltorb was a Pokeball. Grimer was just a sludge monster, which isn't an object, but it's just a blob, and so is Ditto. So there's really, when people say that 5th gen Pokemon are unoriginal, you have to look at the blob Pokemon. I don't know. Anyways, now going back all the way to 1st gen, um, oh,
Oh, sorry
telephone.
about that.
That's very
That's
professional.
my alarm.
Woo.
It's very professional.
So any like starting thoughts on first generation? It's
Uh,
Pokemon, it's the games in general.
well, first gen was the beginning of Pokemon. That's when most of the ideas were formatted. That's when most ideas were put into the game because that was basically Game Freak's, I think, about second game.
There's really not a lot to talk about fifth gen, first gen. I don't know. It's a popular one just because of probably nostalgia alone. And I don't know.
I could
Playing
talk
through
about
that
my
game
save
again.
file, but that's a little unprofessional.
Well, that's your game. You can talk about your experience with it and what you thought about it. Well, what the thing is, I'm gonna sneeze. I have to mute my mic in a second. But the thing is, like,
And that was a sneeze.
no, it wasn't. Not yet. It'll be soon, though. I can feel it coming. But the thing is, there are like some innovations that weren't in first gen, but they were introduced in second gen and third gen and so on. Like, for instance, you can't just go up to a bush and then press A. You have to go to the select screen, which is a really like small thing to make a complaint about. But if you're playing red, blue, or yellow, and you've been used to black and white, diamond, pearl, and so forth, it's gonna be a bit annoying and tedious. I know it isn't. It's only like an extra 5 seconds to do so, but I don't know.
I'm not sure. Well,
Things like that,
I,
and the whole box system is terrible in that game. And if
the
it was
box.
a standalone game, I can see it be aging well, but with the innovations that were given in the newer games, first gen really aged poorly. It's still playable. It's really enjoyable and all. It's still, you can still play it and say I enjoyed this game. I'm being redundant here, but
First gen still can be somewhat easy to get into, although if someone would say go from Gen 5 to Gen 1 or 2, Gen 2 would probably be much easier to get into. Gen 1 still has a lot of, their ideas are a little more simpler going in because it was their first game in the Pokemon series. And so when you're playing Red and Blue, You don't have to deal with things such as friendship or version exclusive differences besides Pokemon and
Well,
trading.
everything was very simple. Oh, by the way, this picture is totally irrelevant right now, but I still have the starters open up, the Gen 6 ones.
You know, but Gen 1 was kind of bare bones, and that can be good or worse depending on what you like out of Pokemon, since there's no breeding, since there's no nighttime, daytime
Well, the
difference.
Pokemon themselves, they're
Not even any color.
simple. They're
Yeah.
simple, which could be thought as a good thing, because here we have Kyurem now.
Well, it's not even that it's simple. It's that it made quite a bit of use out of common sense, which they kind of started having trouble
Well,
recycling after the next few
that
gens.
one form of Kyurem is like really over-designed. I forget what the form is called right here. Let's just right here. Look at all those tubes and things. It's just over-designed. With first gen, there really isn't any. There isn't a lot of over-designing at all, and that's kind of a charm that it has.
And the thing with first gen is, if you ever want to play, if they do not ever put it on the 3DS shop, which they could do if they wanted to, but I don't know how that'd work out.
Well, I can see that being very successful.
It could, but I mean, like version differences, since you can't trade certain Pokemon, which I'm already having trouble with, and that's kind of depressing.
I don't know
But
if that's going to be too much of a problem. I mean,
well,
it's not
another
like
thing
anyone's going to be wanting to. I don't know. Some people will
Well-
want to complete
well,
the Pokedex, but
another good thing I think that the first gen has, and I'm not talking nostalgia-wise, and although it may sound kind of rude since some people might like the game, is that the first iterations that we got in the US are probably better than Pokemon Yellow, no offense. Where a lot of times you're bogged down by Pikachu. And Pikachu is useful throughout the game, but since it's like trying to play with Charmander in Red and Blue, and the first gem being what it's weak to, you kind of have a hard time, starting off in the game. And Pikachu doesn't level up very well. So, while most games people would recommend you get the ultimate versions, like with the second pair of games being Crystal version, or the third pair of games being Emerald, with first gen you can just get Red or Blue. And generally they aren't that expensive on sites like eBay.
yes.
I just got Pokemon Gold the other day. I'm hoping I'm getting in the mail soon.
And onwards, we talk about second gen, which it's kind of difficult now because Chris has little experience with those games. But we have Gold, Silver, and Crystal, which I'm sure
Yes.
you know something about this game.
I know quite a bit, I just never had any actual gameplay experiences, so besides plot and a few Pokemon, I'm kinda stuck without much knowledge. Or, I did get a little bit further in their remakes on the DS, but supposedly they have a much different experience to them as well.
Well, it is a lot different because. Well, this one was actually quite innovative, though. They introduced breeding shinies. Just the convenience of clicking A in front of the bush instead of having to drag up a menu. And they had the different item system where you can have separate sections in the bag for items, so you wouldn't like run out of things when you get like three items. Because you can only fit 3 items in first gen, by the way.
I do
Totally.
not like the item storage in first gen.
No, it's terrible.
It's like it's okay, but it's like you have to not be a pack rat, otherwise you'll run out of room, either in your inventory and in the storage box, which is kind of generous, but still not very big itself. And oftentimes I actually found myself deleting TMs that I found out I may have needed like 5 seconds later in the game.
Yes, that's happened more than once with me. Um,
Mistakes happen.
Second gen though, it's pretty popular. I can
And,
say that it's very good. And for a
and
while, I considered it to be my favorite, but I'm not entirely sure. I haven't played through it in a while. Actually, the last Pokemon game that I played like 2 weeks ago was Heart Gold, but again, it's a totally different experience because it's remade with all the innovations like the abilities and whatnot, and so forth. I can't really think of anything.
and what people wanted to see out of Gen 2 that they did not when they found out what happened about halfway through the game. Well, there is something I do know about second gen that still kind of makes it easy to get into, despite all the complications that they've added into it, or maybe not complications for people that enjoy it. I don't enjoy it too much, though. But is that you can still learn all those things, and when you do, it's not too hard to remember them because, unlike third gen, where you start to have we reach out to like battle statuses that each Pokemon has, and they're all different. Gen 2 doesn't have that, and that kind of makes remembering what friendship and breeding is like a little bit easier.
One thing, actually, I'm sorry, I can't speak today. I start everything with every statement with one thing, as if, I don't know. But I really like second gen's Pokemon. They're probably my favorite group of Pokemon, or at least most of my favorites come from second gen, i.e. Dunsparce, Ampharos, and I can't remember any of them because I'm terrible with thinking on the spot. But Dunsparce is like really overlooked, but I'm just putting my own opinions in here. Well, this is essentially what it is, but yeah. Favoring Pokemon. But yeah, definitely my favorite generation for the Pokemon itself.
Yeah. Well, we could discuss Gen 2 a little more, but like I said, I don't have too much experience with it.
Well,
So.
they had the day and nights, the day and night cycle, and they had the Pokegear, which they had the phone there. You could actually delete numbers in that one, I think, but in Heart Gold you couldn't. But you can just ignore them. But getting phone calls like every 5 minutes is kind of annoying. But it's
Especially
not too much
from
of
when
a
as a
flaw.
kid you met on a route that wants to tell you about his Rattata.
Yeah, and you're like in the Pokemon League, and he's like, "Hey, I lost to a Pidgey." So yeah, they also had the post game, which was I don't even know if it was like the lengthiest Pokemon game because it wasn't really two games slapped into one. I mean, the post game was really short. You can go to the gyms in like a matter of probably minutes. Not minutes,
Oh,
like I'm exaggerating. But you can probably do it in like 2 hours if you don't want to. Because everything is pretty much open from the start and you have all your HMs and yeah.
TMs. Well, that also depends on what people consider the after game, though. So you have to remember that.
Yeah, you could
Because
consider you could consider Kanto to be part of the in-game. I don't know. It's in-game. You know what I mean.
well, if you don't mind a spoiler type podcast, people
Big
often like
spoiler.
to think that the reason why Gold and Silver was in development so long was because Johto was going to be the only region, and then they decided to go ahead and say, "Hey, we didn't leave off at Kanto. We don't know what happened to our hero. We might as well write him an ending." And it's kind of what Kanto was like. It's just you're just kind of running around everywhere, so you can just meet your old character again.
Yeah, which was really weird because he didn't say anything other than like ... So he
It
was
was
just
a-
like chilling in the cave.
It's like you'd think that'd be kind of like a joke because he was a silent protagonist,
Oh.
And, it's
Am I
kind of
the only
funny.
one who found that like really creepy? He just kind of
Well,
If you think of it, he
that
just kind of stares you down,
yeah,
pulls out
it's
a
supposed to be
Pokeball.
kind of funny, but it just becomes kind of creepy afterwards.
Everything
And that
about 8-bit games is 8-bit games are creepy. That's all I have to say about that. I don't even know why. It just is like that. But shoot, I lost my train of thought.
well, if we ever do another podcast, I'm getting gold in about 5 to 7 days, or possibly even tomorrow, which I find kind of funny. But about 2 to 5 days, and then later on, I can probably talk to everyone a little more about my Gen 2 experience.
Overall,
if the battery
though,
still works.
I really do
This-
enjoy
This is
second
the one
gen.
drawback to Gen 2. Battery does not last that long.
That's not in game, but it is a kind of an issue. My copy of Gold, as of like 2 weeks ago, last week, I'm not really sure. It still worked. I tested it and I still had my file on it. I have a shiny Tentacool on that, or Tentacruel now. That's the only shiny that I've ever managed to find.
It's good.
But anyways, now we're going into the Generation 3.
What people would like to consider the black sheep in the series,
It
at least until 6
kind
comes
of
out and everyone
is.
complains.
It kind of is. Not that's a bad thing at all, but it's a lot. It feels a lot more cartoony in a way. Maybe that's just because the GBA is more powerful and can make cartoony looking graphics, but
And you forget, even though Johto was supposed to be a lot more different than Kanto, since they started developing Gold and Silver right out of the development from Gen 1, when they still had little to no money. When they started 3, they put in a lot of the profits they made, and they made about $40 million worth of profits from the first 2 games. So,
yeah, but overall, Gen 3, I really like it, but it is definitely the black sheep. I mean, it's a tropical theme. The music is like trumpety. I don't know how to describe that, but
well, basically,
the
probably
Pokemon designs are definitely different from the past 2.
Gen 3 does a really good job of presenting itself, but because it takes that large gap from 1 and 2 with the change of its themes, which they usually change throughout every generation anyways, but since the theme was a lot more dramatically different than the first 2 and even the 4th and 5th ones, a lot of people like to see it as something that doesn't really relate to Pokemon. And the Pokemon in that game basically have the region kind of locked off from the rest of the world, so you have trouble finding their Pokemon in any other game, or Pokemon from other generations for that matter.
Yeah, that's when Fire Red and Leaf Green, which I'm not really going to discuss too in depth, but we'll touch on that briefly after, I guess. Yeah, but 3rd gen, I think it kind of made like essentially a template for the modern Pokemon game, or modern as a 5th gen. It seems very accessible to if you played 5th gen and you're just like some 6-year-old. If you're like a 6-year-old and you've been playing white or black, it's gonna seem really foreign to you if you pick up red and blue. To me, anyways, I would think that it would seem really foreign. But 3rd gen seems a bit more accessible. It just seems modernized compared to the other ones. I don't know if I'm the only one who thinks this, but
It is a lot more modernized than the other ones. But another thing about 3rd gen is that it kind of picks up a little slowly, and a lot of what you'll see in the beginning of the game are kind of similar town to town, at least in terms of like the same kind of grass, the same kind of landscape, and it gets a lot more different later on, and it becomes very gorgeous, and it looks a lot better than probably most other landscapes in other generations. But when you start off with 3rd gen, everything kind of looks the same at first, and it gets on your nerves a little bit. At least it did mine.
yeah, I can see where you're coming from on that one. But
If you can stick with it, though, you'll find one of the best landscapes you'll probably find in
3rd
most
gen,
or all gens.
Third gen also introduced abilities which are quite useful and unique to Pokemon. So I always liked that, and definitely that's
But
a
you
good thing.
but you have to remember that each Pokemon's abilities are different and that you have to memorize them, otherwise it can be the difference between accidentally killing yourself in the battle.
Well, they're like accessible. You can read them in the summary. So
You can.
also one thing that I hear a lot of people complain about, the amount of water.
The amount of water is kind of big in third gen.
But it's based on, well, there's land and then there's water. That's the whole gimmick of the game with Groudon and Kyogre.
Yes. The problem with it is that since the difference is supposed to be between lava, or in the game's type fire, and water, you think there'd be a lot more lava and fire. But what that actually translates into is just land itself. Which is kind of...
Darren literally just messaged me right now. Literally messaged me because I'm using that word properly.
Literally. Because that couldn't have been literally more correct.
My head literally blew up after I heard that. No, getting off topic now.
Okay, so I think third gen is very interesting, and it's probably the one generation that I enjoyed the most.
I would go as far as saying that too.
At least until I get my grubby little hands on Gen 2 and finally play it.
Woo.
Because I skipped over that one completely.
But, yeah, third gen is definitely probably the most nostalgic for me, because I'm a young and I'm 17. Yeah, but I definitely have the most memories of this game. And I don't even know if I'm truly nostalgia blind with this. I just really enjoy it, though.
That's something. Yeah.
But the Pokemon there were pretty cool.
A lot of people like to make fun of third gen, saying that it looks a lot like Digimon. But I don't really see.
Well, as I stated before, they do look noticeably different from
1 and 2.
Again, it's the whole cartoony aspect on it. I mean, could you imagine a Pokemon like Exploud being in a sprite form?
No. Well, this depends on the artist's rendering. Pokemon usually has top-notch graphic rendering. What am I saying?
Of course,
they usually do a pretty good job of bringing artwork over it into sprite form now since Gen 1, since they really, really did a bad job on Gen 1.
But an 8-bit first-gen sprite of Exploud or something like that, it would just look really off to me.
It would.
Just because it feels out of place. But third gen, they did that a lot. I mean, third gen was like... It seemed like they were trying to distance themselves from other Pokemon and trying to make them as outlandish looking as possible, not really based on, I don't know, but again, cartoony. That's the point I'm trying to make. Now, I think we should digress from this. I guess we can talk about the remakes, which were just remakes, just with...
Hey, do you want Darren to be in this conversation?
It'd be kind of awkward to have a guest in, like, thrown in. I think it's fine. And his mic is kind of bad. I'm sorry. But, yeah. Fire Red and Leaf Green were just remakes of the original first-gen game. It was needed, because first-gen was slow, and it needed to be modernized. It's basically just Fire Red. It's just basically first gen, but with the innovations of third gen.
Yeah, that, and they could, because it was basically their way of saying thank you to people who had been there in the beginning, since it was their 10th anniversary. Or I refuse to believe that, since it wasn't even 8 years. But according to them, the 10th anniversary. And just the fact that they had a whole lot of money and they could afford to, make Gen 1 look realistic. So.
realistic, I guess, for the time. I don't know.
For the time.
Quote unquote realistic. But that sounded like, I don't know. That sounded weird when I said as if it was like a statement.
Automatopoeia!
Anyways, shoot, where was I? Yeah, they were compatible with Ruby Sapphire. Colosseum, I don't want to talk about that. Not that I don't like it, I just don't want to discuss that because...
And I'm very sorry, I have absolutely no knowledge about the console games, and I should, but I
like
never
them.
got any time to play them.
I do enjoy them quite a bit, though. 4th gen, probably, my opinion, the most forgettable generation.
Oh, fuck. I don't know about 4th gen. I ignored 4th gen after 3rd gen just because I thought I wasn't very interested in it, since the only game I could beat before then was Gen 1 once, which I'm fortunately getting close to beating again right now. And Gen 3, and I like Gen 3, but Gen 3 was really, really big, and by the time DS came out, I wanted games that were just a little more faster paced, so I put 4th gen off. Finally got it a few months ago, and I just don't enjoy it.
You know, I honestly really like... I thought 4th gen was fine and all, I just really don't remember all that much about it. I mean, the Pokemon were fine. It was forgettable, but it was good. I enjoyed it. I remember enjoying it. But I do know that they introduced, which was kind of a risky move that they did. They introduced like a shitload of pre-evolutions and evolutions of Pokemon from other generations, like
especially the
Tangela.
Kanto region.
Yeah, I think they did a lot of the Kantos. Like Probopass. He's not from Kanto, but I'm just stating a bunch of them.
Like I think Venonat had one.
No, Venonat had an evolved form in
Tangela, I mean.
Yeah, Tangela. I used one in Heart Gold, actually. It's cool. Some of them were just like really weird looking, like Probopass and Licky Licky.
Licky Licky.
Let me find some of them.
I guess what I'm just trying to say about 4th gen myself is, I think I just kind of came in with high expectation because most people said that they were really good.
Well, I found Pinkie Pie somehow, but alright.
Well, that's going to happen because I don't know what I'm talking about.
Good thing I didn't find any porn. Because that's a very, very... I don't know. It seems like a name that would get some provocative
What are you using?
results.
Google?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a very, very dangerous place sometimes if you don't have safe search on. Which I don't.
I could talk a little bit about the actual differences between Diamond and Pearl and Platinum, since we didn't go over the differences between Gen 3's Ultimate version.
I don't think those are really big because they're really just version exclusive Pokemon, and maybe like one NPC says like a different
You do
word.
also forget that Platinum added in about an extra dungeon, and I think it fixed up gameplay a bit, since like you really needed, supposedly in Diamond and Pearl, you really needed fire types, and there was only two, and one of the two is Flareon. And Flareon has the worst stats ever.
have very little experience with Platinum. I've borrowed it from a friend, and that was just... I was on his file just because I wanted to check out like what differences there were. And I know they had that bit with Giratina.
Giratina, yes.
Yeah. Giratina, whatever. Yeah, I know they had that big... whatever... that big giant death world, I don't know what you call it. But
Dream World?
Not Dream World, that was 5th gen. Which I don't even know Dream. I know what it
It's
is, but
it's a reflection rule or something.
we'll get on that.
Distortion.
Distortion World. Thank you. I don't know
Sorry.
anything about that. I
I didn't
really.
get far enough into it yet to find out exactly what distortion world is like either.
But
With the exception of the fact that I guess it holds some major plot points.
I guess some of the
So,
more notable things are the Pokach, which is kind of. What did you think of that? The watch.
it was okay. I like the watch. I like to be able to sit there, especially when I had to do something in a timed amount of minutes, and I could actually just look at its clock and say, "Hey, time's up." The Wookiee watch was kind of useful. I like its calculator. I liked quite a few things about it.
Yeah, they also had gender differences, which are kind of really mundane and pointless. But I guess some of them were so obscure you wouldn't even notice them until you look it up.
But what's the Pokemon just talked about that had an evolution? Tangela?
Yes,
Tangrowth.
Tangrowth.
Tangrowth. Like, Tangrowth has gender differences, and its differences is that with a female, the tips on his fingers are longer, and that's it.
Yeah, some of they're really obscure.
Obnoxious stuff.
Let's get Pinkie Pie out of the way. I don't think anyone wants to see that.
Like, Pikachu is, I think they had a difference, and the difference was that, the markings on its back were, squared instead of jagged.
Something
And
like
it's it.
that.
You can't see his back anyways.
But yeah, also 3D graphics were existent in 4th gen, which was cool. They didn't really become super
They didn't change
interesting looking.
gameplay that much.
No, it was just 3D sprites pretty much, or sprites in a 3D world more. I'm thinking
And
that.
speaking of that, that's why I'm a little disappointed in 5th gen, despite the fact that I know that the DS couldn't handle 3D very well.
Well,
But
we'll discuss that in a second.
Yeah.
I don't know if we should make any wrapping thoughts about 4th gen.
Rapping.
I don't know.
Yo.
And look,
Yo,
I have a picture
yo.
of Tangela here. Tangrowth. Get it? Rapping.
I have a picture of Tangrowth.
But
What rhymes with Tangrowth?
yeah, overall, 4th gen, good game. Forgettable. Probably not to everyone, but I really just don't remember too much about it.
I haven't
I
played it
remember
enough to it.
Pokemon, but I just don't remember the Sinnoh region too well, or just the layouts of that game.
I haven't played it enough to give a proper opinion, and I know a lot of people like it, so I won't bash the game too much. But at the time I did, I just kind of felt like it was holding my hand for a little too long. And the minute it let go, it was just like everything just became so much more bigger than me that I just wasn't enjoying myself anymore. So
Yes, anyways, now we're going into the final generation, or the latest generation.
5,
Number 5.
commonly known
Number
as Black and
5.
White.
First of all, I have to say this. I have no experience with Black or White 2, so I'm just...
Me neither. I know its plot. I know what it's about.
I know that there are
and
different landmarks, and that's about it, and some other things.
And I think how they tied up the game is stupid. So
Well, anyways, yeah. Black and White. I actually really enjoy it, and I'm playing through it now. The White. I've beaten the game, but I'm just going around and catching Pokemons and whatnot.
So you beat the game. Did you notice anything after you beat the game?
No.
The Pokemon levels didn't just increase tenfold.
Well, the thing is, if you go to it depends. If you go in the certain areas, they will be really strong. But
Okay, well, let's just go ahead and forget that point. So, where do you want to start off with Gen 5?
well,
It's a
it's still relatively new, and I still remember it being new, very new, when the only known Pokemon were the starters and Zorua or whatever. Yeah, but the Pokemon themselves, they're weird. Not that it's a bad thing. They're just strange. Let me take.
I don't know. I've kind of grown used to Gen 5's designs, but I think that's probably just because I got a Pokédex on my 3DS. The free version that comes with your 3DS, or at least it used to when the 3DS first came out.
Pokemon.
So I know
like,
most of their designs very well.
Pokemon like Kling Clang.
Cling Clack.
That's hard to pronounce, but
And their 3 evolutions just being more gears.
yeah, it's weird. Then the Vanillux.
Vanillux. A lot of people seem to hate that Pokemon just because it's fucking ice cream, but I don't know, I don't think it's too bad. Despite the fact that it was made by a guy there whose only other project on there is Harmonite, and I'm kind of a little fishy about that because I don't like Harmonite too much. That being said, I'm not too sure what to say about 5, and that's kind of depressing because I know that it held a lot of differences, such as the way the game moved along and its themes versus the rest of the game's themes. I could talk about that.
In general, I like the game. Not so much. I do like the Pokemon, but the game itself, I really enjoy it. Like, I think that there were a lot of cool innovations, but I'm finding that there's a lack of places to train in this one. Or at least I'm trying to, and I can't really find a lot of trainers. What I wish they had, I wish they still had the things like the Verse Seeker. I'm not sure if that's in Black 2 or White 2. I'm probably just making a fool out of myself if there is one. But I do wish that there was something like a Verse Seeker in Black and White. Because that way you can just like call up any trainer and say, hey, I want to battle you. And, you know, it would be better for training. But I really...
Right.
Yeah, I'm being redundant here, but I think that a lot of the gym designs and the designs of pretty much anything in that game were really good. I think that it was a very visually appealing game.
It was a visually appealing game, and I think even though it's kind of disappointing at first, I didn't mind it too much when I actually played the game. I like that it has a more 2D detailed style than actually going ahead and making that jump to 3D right then and there. When it would have looked like Super Mario 64 DS, and if no one knows what that looks like, you don't want to know what it looks like, so that thing doesn't look very good, to be honest. But I don't have too many memories with Black or White.
Well, it came
like
out
the
like
different...
2 years ago.
I know, but I mean, I do, like I said, I like the differences in that its themes were like a difference between technology and old Eastern living, you know, without technology, and how that went hand to hand, and about how Black and White actually meant something than just, you know, colors, you know, because if you ever played the game, it means yin and yang, and that's supposed. Yin and yang.
It's kind of a cool concept.
But, you know, yeah. I think my only problem with Gen 5, I won't be discussing the inside of the games too much of the game's plot, because I know a lot of people like it, but
that's called
don't too much.
spoiling.
Well, we already spoiled a whole bunch of crap, but...
Yeah, we did. But it's fine.
I think it's fine.
I'm sure everyone has like enough knowledge to know that we're gonna be talking about spoilerific stuff.
Yeah. Or at least if they do realize that they can't shut this video down.
Ooh.
but
First of all, it's like 53 minutes in, and you are a crazy person who just sat here watching just nerds talk about fictional creatures.
Talk about me.
Fictional creatures.
I mean, it's like, I know I'm a nerd, but I'm not crazy. Or is the other way around. Anyways,
I know I'm not a nerd, but I am crazy.
Yes.
But yes.
Well, I think the one thing that just kind of drew me away from White was how slow it picks up. When you start off in the 5th gen, it kind of holds your hand like it does in 4th gen, but it let goes It let goes early enough. It let goes by the second gym. The thing is, though, is that at least with my experience, the first time playing it, by the time I got to the second gym and I beat the second gym and I got put on a goose chase, I just kind of turned it off and said that was it and just put it away for a while. And I didn't even realize that right after that the game would have started picking up in story and what you could have done with Pokemon. I just I just kind of sat there and I just was just drowning in base in training in basics, and I just got sick of it kind of fast. So, and another thing that drew me away from 5th gen that other gens didn't is that other gens will usually, if they have a cliffhanger, and their stories will be resolved in the special versions, and Black and White. Look like it would have a perfect cue to have a special version, regardless of whether that would be called gray or not. And then we found out that we got sequels to tie up the storylines, and the sequels didn't tie up the storylines at all. I'm just saying that right now.
So assuming that we're not going to get some third title, I mean, sixth gen is already confirmed in development, so I don't think they're working. It just seemed like 5th gen was really short. If it's completely dead, I'm not sure if they're just going to make some really odd remake title, because I don't want remakes to exist again, because the reason I think they had remakes in the first place with 1st gen is just because they were old and they were clunky and slow, so they decided to give it the modern treatment so it would be more accessible. And that's really the only one, probably the only good reason why, and to get Kanto Pokemon in 3rd gen in Ruby Sapphire. But yeah, I really don't think that there needs to be a remake for. But then again, trading Pokemon, you're gonna need some Pokemon from these games, and you can't just use. You can't really use like a Sapphire cartridge with. I don't know. I just don't think it's necessary unless for like trading purposes. But these Pokemon.
That was one thing that 3rd gen could not do. It could not. It had, as far as I'm concerned, or at least as what I've seen between the sockets on Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance, they could have had an option to trade between them, but you couldn't. So. That's just Nintendo's decision, I guess. I mean, that's exactly why the remakes existed that early on and didn't wait until their next system on the DS or something else.
Well, we're closing in at about
GameCube.
an hour here, and I think we've pretty much discussed everything we want to. Unless you have any other closing remarks about 5th gen.
Oh, 5th gen. I was going to say, I could do a little overcap of all the gens, but I just want to touch on 5th gen. 5th gen is okay. I like 5th gen. 5th is new, it's innovative. But story-wise, it was really a letdown, because I kind of started to like its story. And then at the end they left, it's giant, not giant, but a really wanting cliffhanger that you wanted to be answered. And it kind of made me suspicious, because usually they don't do sequels for Pokemon games. They usually do third games, and they made full sequels of these games. I'm just like, so we'll know what happened to everyone, and we really don't. The only thing we get out of the main characters in the first games is that they disappeared and never came back.
And apparently, the sequels didn't really help too much on the story.
Well, the sequels, the one things that the first set of games were lacking was balance, I guess, in gameplay, which I didn't notice all that too much, except for the fact that everything grew 20 levels when I beat the game. But supposedly 2nd gen does a lot better job with its combat system if you had a problem with the first pair of games. So, that's 5th gen.
Christ in a can, who the hell is still watching this? It's been an hour now.
Me and you.
We're the ones recording this. And if we weren't even recording this, we'd just be talking.
I'm pretty sure
about it
most
like
people will
that.
be kind of disinterested in our Gen 6 conversation, but that's whatever. I'm kind of excited for Gen 6, though.
Gen
Sorry if
6
I'm...
looks pretty nice. I'm not
Gen...
one of those Gen 1 whores. I like all the generations in their own way. So I'm
The themes of Gen 6 seem really, really weird right now, but I like the fact that this might actually be the first full 3D Pokemon game with, first full detailed 3D sprites.
Game Freak. They know what they're.
And the fact that you may even have, free control.
They know. I don't know if they will. It seems. I don't know. We'll see.
Just as long as when I'm walking through and it doesn't look like it in the trailer, as long as I don't have to walk like I do in like the same games up to Gen 5, where it's like you go left to take one block of a step left, you press up to take one block of a step up. This game looks actually freeform, so
Yeah, I can see that.
that I'm excited for.
But we're pretty much done here. But Game Freak, they know what they're doing, so I'm sure that it won't be horrible. We can say that much. It's definitely not going to be horrible.
I already pre-ordered it, so if it is horrible,
You
I'll be
have?
sorry, but I'm... Yes.
What do you get? Do you get like any special things?
I don't know. Yeah, they haven't said anything.
Because I should do that.
Probably not until E3 when they give out more information.
Well, I
And
should.
yes, they're going to have this game at E3.
Well, I should pre-order it. Which one did you pre-order?
X.
Good. Now,
Oh, I did X, and then I desperately said, "Oh wait, I might want Y," and then I already put money down on it. So
we
it's
have
fine.
we have no idea what the version exclusives will be like. So, I think it's best that we just shut up and end this. So,
Okay, thank you very much for watching this podcast. We might do another one if we ever decide we want to talk more in depth about maybe a certain other game in the series or just a certain other game. Period. But I think I've
I think we
Probably
might
time
do
to shut
something with this. Casual game conversations, pretty much.
yeah.
That seems like a good idea. Anyways, goodbye. If you want to state your name.
CaneofWater is this username classified.
Spelled incorrectly, but whatever. Bye.